looking forward to knowing more about you guys and what you're doing. So take care and sit tight. So I'm Dr. Warren. You can call me Warren, Dr. Warren, or anything else is okay to be here. And some of you are trying to put your note takers in there. Some of them got in, great. If not, then we do that. And that's Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. Now, I am in Hong Kong, right? Some of you may or may not be in Hong Kong, but just to give you a feel for what's going to happen tonight. First of all, we're recording this and we will put it, well, and as soon as I find or figure out how to take a recording from Fathom and automatically put the summary and the link into a document, we'll get back to you. But Fathom is not exactly really friendly when it comes to N8N, and it's a little bit better when you're using some other tools, but I won't go into that too much tonight. But what we want to do tonight is cover Hong Kong Founders Institute. Okay, so this is a recruiting session, and we have quite a few who have signed up. I have the list of people who are here and the list of people who are in the waiting room, but it's not right in front of my face. So if you do know someone who's sitting in the waiting room, let me know. But other than that, I will be your host this evening, and let me go through the list of our agenda. First, we're going is 4 different ways that you can check your automation. And this should take about 40 minutes, give or take. And let's see. And this is, for those of you who don't know, this is what we call N8N. Right? So like the N8N right up there, right? Why and how they named it that, I don't know. And it's been confusing for me and everybody else I know since day one. But what do we use evaluations for? Okay. Well, we can use evaluations for, in this case, we're checking if the tool is called. What do I mean by that? Well, there are evaluations that you need to use different tools for different methods. And so is the tool called that we need? So if someone says, what's 8 times 8? Then it will call a calculator. And I've simplified these for purposes of the lesson. And those of you who are really interested, call me, email me, let's talk. And I can tell you more about this. And no, I do coach my startups, and I coach them on AI, but mostly I'm not really an AI coding and developer. But I did find that you as a startup, you need to know these things so that you can be successful in the startup world, and you don't have to have millions of dollars from those the big businesses. So, but what is this? And these are all templates. There's in Founders Institute or in N8N, there are like 7,000 templates that you can just use. They say, and quote me on this, they say that in N8N, there's no code required. Yes, sirree, that's what they say. There's no code required. And if you're an engineer who already knows code, yeah, that's right. But seriously, no code required is, it's not really true, because it's still, you need to know how to code. You need to know engineering. But with this, once you do know these things, then you can learn how to use them. So this is what we call an evaluation. Okay, so say I'm going to start my little thing. I'm going to say type in EVAL, evaluation. We have what we call nodes, 4 actions that we can take, and then a trigger, which this one's a trigger. It starts this evaluation, and then we can set inputs, get outputs, metrics, and check if. And we will look at most all of these tonight in the different forms, but that is an evaluation. Also and I use Gemini because it comes with my email or my Gmail. And so what I try to do and what I suggest you do is keep it simple. Okay, if you don't want to use Gemini for one thing and then GPT for one thing and Claude for one thing, but in most of these templates, people are creating them for their own company and they give them away. So you have to use their company. And for starters and founders, those little bits were what we found that kill you. You have a subscription for $50 a month here. You've got a subscription for 40 there, a subscription for 20 there. If you can use, and like I do, basically, I pay for Zoom. I pay for my Gmail, which is a business or enterprise, which gives me all of these when the same price. And then I also pay for chat-based and N8N because the cloud version of N8N will cost about $20 a month. Those are pretty much it. And I try to keep it low like that because those little bits can get out of hand really fast. And with the power and the multimodal capabilities of Gemini now and Nano Banana, it rocks and rolls. Okay, so you can use these and use them and use them and use them. So anyway, we start off with fetching data. Then we want to match the data. You know, is it a question? You know, what kind of question is it? And so then let me show you the data. What are we doing? So we're checking if the tool's called. Where's my tool calling? So here's a question. What type of question is it? Then it'll say, okay, what I've told it is it needs to call a calculator, right? Then, but here, this one is, what's this top story on Hacker News? It needs to call web page. Who's the CEO of N8N? Now, we're not looking for the answers to these. What we're looking for is the ability for the workflow to call the right tool, okay? And so we do have that here, and that's what we're doing in this one. We're just saying call the right tool. Is it calling the correct tool? Because later on, we're going to combine tools. We're going to add tools together. Oh, sorry, Joseph. Okay. You guys let me know when someone's in the, yeah, there we go. And anyway, that's what we want to do. So then we check what format it is. Then we come into our AI agent. And here we are just sending a message to the chat model to tell it, you know, what are we doing? Then it will say, do I want to go fetch a web page or get a calculator? And some of you are thinking, well, this doesn't seem like rocket science. No, it's not. But what it does is, and here are the instructions, you know, fetch a web page of the web pages. And you want to check and make sure that it's doing these things, because if it's not getting a web page, then what happens? Oh no, our workflow is not going to work, or it's just going to do a calculation. Now this is the evaluation line. And then, so if I ask it a question, it will come down here and it'll just come out here. But this evaluation, why do we do evaluations? Well, we are evaluating our workflows for a couple reasons, okay? And the reasons are workflows and AI is kind of a black box that things go in and things come out. We don't know if it's correct because it's not coding. You know, the developer says, you know, cut some code. Now, like I used to work for Dave Duffield at PeopleSoft, you know, and he's famous for saying, let's cut some code, kick back, cut some code, see if the stuff will sell. Well, he used more colorful language than that. And so when you're working with LLMs, you know, this chat model, things are going to come out differently. So we need to make sure that those criteria are working. And then we'll check, you know, is it work? Is it done? And is it called the right one? And then we evaluate it, and then we do it. All right, so up here, by the way, is my evaluation tool, okay? And so I have a database, I've got outputs, and I've got my quality score. Now, if you have the pro level, okay, you have unlimited metrics for workflows, okay? Right now, it says I reached my limit because I've only one, right? Because I'm on the lower price plan. You know, but since I have not published this one, you know, I've got it's only get the same notice here and here and here. But that's because it's my one, right? But once I publish it, it'll only let me use those metrics from one, and that's but the pro plan is $50 a month, where the plan I'm on is just 25 or 20, right? So anyway, this is where you do the evaluations, and you can say, I can run it an evaluation here, and I will show you, I'll demonstrate that later, or I can run it here in my evaluation. So what I'm going to do, everybody watch, you guys are watching, watch this, watch this, watch this. I click on my execute workflow, and you can see it executing. Okay, boom, there it went. That fast, it went to the workflow. And then the second, the third, and I should have deleted these, and then because it's rewriting them, right? So it's that fast, and it's done and called the correct tool. Now, well, what happens if you don't call the correct tool? Well, that's when we start to troubleshoot. We go in and say, is it evaluating? Check whether it's been executed, and I will go a lot more into this later on. So it checked my question, right? Then it said, okay, once it got here, we want to check that question. What happens? So it ran through here, and then it looked through. It said, oh, this is a question that goes for the internet, and then it went and sent it on, and then it updated my list. Right, but again, this is how fast it goes. And if you've watched YouTube in the past, instead of the whole node, turning and circling like that, then there it goes, and boom. So instead of the whole node, then it would only send there. So now, see, it's called all of them. Okay, I like the checkmark tool called. Originally it was just for. And then how you keep getting kicked out. Okay, so and this is just for the tool being called, and I've got my data source, which is right here, but I could also input something from a webhook, or and I'm just searching the web. What would I need? And I'll get more into that in a bit. Okay, so is everyone with me so far? Good, good, good. All right, so the next one is RAG. What is it? Retrieval augmented generation. Basically, you are teaching, you have Q&A, right? Or you have an answering where you, as a startup, need to answer the phone a lot. Well, what you can do is you can set up your retrieval augmented generation. Basically, it's going to get feedback from you, right? And what you're doing in your business. So if you're answering these phones, one startup friend of mine is doing retreats, but he is doing some very fancy retreats, and he, fancy, high end. And basically what he's doing is, instead of him answering the phone all the time, he's taken all of the questions and all of the responses that he has for the last several years, and they were all on WhatsApp, in his WhatsApp business account. He downloaded them and put them into his, Google Sheet. Okay, and I should make this a little bit bigger for you guys. And so this is how he trains what we call a vector. Okay, the vector, simple vector store, vector database, and this one is free. Use it with your N8N account. Google Slides or Google Sheets, they're free with Google account. And these I'm using just my regular Gmail account. I'm not even using my enterprise And so, because then it works better. But then I have my sheet, and it's like, okay, is there any duplicates? Then what it does is it chat, and click here, and then it'll run through, and it'll train it. I already did this. And basically, I'm showing you guys very simplified versions to help you understand it. Okay. And the reason for that is we want to make sure you get it instead of saying, wow, there's so much stuff you can do. And, really, what do we do? So, but once we've gotten that, we've got that down. So then here, I'll look at my rag. Okay. So, so here, what we have is document ID, question, reference, answer. And those are the generated answers that we will do here in a minute. Okay, so once I click in, again, I start this, it's going to go through my test database. Why do we have, and what are the common suggestions when you're testing an agent, okay, or these workflows, is first, build it with several different examples. The main examples, the best answer, some outlier questions. Okay, I have some of those in there, but test it to make sure it works. Okay, once you've got that MVP, right, then you want to train it. And like my example with my friend who is in the retreat business, he's got several thousand examples he can now train, and because the more you train, the better it is. And I've had one of my coaching clients who is a startup. I'm talking to him about this, and I'm like, you need several thousand. And he's like, oh no, several thousand. What am I going to do? Several thousand. And I said, okay, how many calls do you get? And he's like, oh no, 4 or 5 calls a day. How many days is it going to be before you have several thousand? Maybe a few months, maybe a year. But then after that, it can now start answering the questions for you. It's not sending a customer to a list of Q&A and let them find their own questions. I find that offensive. I don't know about you guys. It's not sending them to a customer to your knowledge vault to search for the question and the answer. I find that offensive too, because what if I don't know the word I'm searching for? But when you use something like this, I've run this, I've trained it. Now I can run my data, or I can run this workflow. And what it is it's going to basically, there are different documents, and you can see they're different document ID. Eiffel Tower, Eiffel Tower, Eiffel Tower, photosynthesis, Battle of Hastings, photosynthesis, Battle of Hastings. We mixed them up on purpose. And these are the questions that will be asked. Okay. Those questions now have these reference answers. Should probably put these all. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll test it with the answer that we are generating in our workflow. Okay, so we're having an AI agent look at those questions and the answers, and then it will, when we create this workflow, it will now give us the actual answer, the relevant document, and the rationale why it chose that. And of course, just like on YouTube, you see people doing these things on YouTube, and it all works because they've rehearsed it. They know what problems are going to happen. But when you get out on there on your own and you're trying it, and it's like, why doesn't it work for me? Well, because it has been rehearsed. So again, I've been, the last few days making sure all of this works really well. And so here we go. So watch it not work. Okay, there we go. Fetching a database, data set, and watch it. So then, and it works. And so you're like, why? How does it work? What's going on? And then, okay. So then tool calling, and it will show up in a little bit. And success, 1 millisecond, 2 milliseconds, calculate the relevance. And I think what I did was I didn't go like this right ahead of time, and then go like that. We'll come back and look at that later. But now what it's doing is this is now creating a way for my questions to be more effective. Okay, and there's nothing showing up there. So this is what came up in my test a few minutes ago. I shouldn't say a few minutes ago, or the last couple of days. So basically, the question is, when was the Eiffel Tower completed? It was completed in 1889. Document relevance. So it's yes, we got a 1. A 1 is true, 0 is false, and anything in between is not there. The fact that it is relevant, first fact is relevant because the answer was in the data. Okay. Now here, number 2. Who designed the Eiffel Tower? Well, it wasn't mentioned. So we've got an answer that said, no, it wasn't mentioned, but we still have a document relevant because it did look through all the Eiffel Tower documents, because that's what we trained it for. Sorry, something in there. That's what we trained it for. Okay. So, and then again, plants photosynthesis. And I'm not doing that just because my wife teaches science in a local secondary school. But but what it does is, yes, it found the right answer in the right document. Okay? And that's all we can ask for. Okay. And then, yeah. Okay. So now the main thing is it went to the right document sets. Okay. And it couldn't, even though it didn't have the answer mentioned, no answer, but it went to the correct document to find that answer, which is the Eiffel Tower. And then, all this rationale, that just tells you whether it's really looking at the right thing. But it beats just, trying your best, right? And because in the old days, we could just test, you have a system, we test it, and boom, there it is. But what we're looking for is performance, reliability, efficiency, and quality. And I'll show you more about that in a minute when we start to look at the correctness or string similarity, because in string similarity, it goes deep. Okay. But next one is correct. Okay. We're calculating and answers the same as the expected answer. So Q&A. So when we have someone says, what caused the Roman Empire? These are questions that your customers may have, and then you have reference answers. That Q&A that you have created for your customers. Well, here it is. Right before it was looking at building at in the future. This is just what is there already, and we should have done this in a different order. Right, we build it here, and then here is as we go, more answers are going to be added to this database. And so once you have an answer, it's going to update this database. And that's what makes it so powerful, is the more you have, the more input you get, the stronger your database will be, and the better you will be at helping your customers. So anyway, so back to evaluating the correctness. Okay. One is evaluating, does it build? The other is, we're evaluating whether or not it's correct. And again, we have a start the workflow. But here on our agent, we say, you're a helpful assistant and you're answering questions, but we're just using the chat model to do this. And we have a set of questions that we're looking at. And I'm just going to take it easy way. I'm just going to check, is it evaluating? All right. And if it's evaluating, then question set. So if it's evaluating, as if I put something in through the normal method, it's going to give me output through the normal method. Right? This evaluation is on top of, in addition to your regular agent workflow. Why do we need that? Well, this is when you're setting it up, does it work? Right? When you're running it, after you've been running it for a while, then is it becoming more accurate or less accurate? Are you when things like LLMs change, your models change, your times change, your offerings change, are we still relevant? Okay. And when you're using these evaluations, the best method, best practices is to change only one variable at a time. Okay, so if I'm going in here and I have a long prompt that's going to give me a score for my, for the, because before we were just building a rag, now we're giving ourselves a score on how well we can answer the question. And so we've got long list, but just change one thing at a time. So if I change this model, then I change the model, and then I would run it several times and evaluate the answer, the output. Okay. But you don't want to change the model and then change the prompt, because then you don't know what was the variable that was success or what wasn't. And that's really a key, because the prompts can change and give you better or worse results. Models change. Now, many of you may have noticed I'm using Gemini 2.0. Okay? It's not a very speedy model. It's not really it's not gonna blow your socks off, and it's not one of the best, but it has a very high volume, so I can have let you guys run these, and when I publish these workflows, it can process all day long. Okay? And this is a pretty big prompt, so that's going to use quite a few tokens. But I won't ever run out of tokens unless, what was the quote? 1,500 people all press submit in the same minute. Then, that's when I will run out of tokens. But other than that, we've got all day. Okay. And so and here what it does is it parses the information, meaning it puts it together in a way that our evaluation can actually give it metrics. Right? We as human beings, we like data, we like statistics, we like metrics. 6 is bigger than 4, 10 is bigger than 6. Well, that helps us instantly know what works and what doesn't. You as a startup founder, you don't have a lot of time to be messing around with a lot of these things. You set up an evaluation, you set up your agent, set up the evaluation, and you're checking it once a week. Right? And I'm planting a seed here. In 3 weeks, we're going to have the 12th of 12 AI, FIAI2, the agent workshops. And that one's where we're going to put it all together and help you in real time build your own founder or your own all-around assistant. Checking the email, answering the phones, setting times and timers. What's the weather like today? Right? This is one assistant that will take care of all of these functions, and that's in 3 weeks' time. So come back and see us then. Don't miss out. But all you do is pick up your phone and ask a question into Telegram, and we use Telegram because it's free. And Telegram's on its way to being somewhat of a WeChat all-around tool, and that's what they're working on. Whereas WhatsApp is still trying to charge a lot of money for these things. Anyway, so we have our evaluation, and then here's our evaluation, and then what it lets us know. Okay, so anyway, so now we get a score. or Q&A. Oh, I should show you my Q&A scores. So there's that. Now, what's a reference answer? What's the question? What's a reference answer? What's the answer that my LLM, this message model, created? Well, here's a creation. This one's creating the model, creating an answer. This is evaluating the answer, and that's where this rationale comes from. It's going to evaluate it, give you a rationale. And we've got scores between 4 and 6, or 2 and 4. And the top score could be a 5, and the bottom score, obviously, could be a 1. But what we want to do, though, is with this score, we want to improve. And here, let me show you a little bit about how we would improve. And the way I do it is I will, use, these are kind of the output with this prompt, right? When I update the prompt, I just make a copy and paste the old prompt in here with that output. And again, you can see earlier today, I did the same thing with an earlier output than this output. And then this prompt, if I decide that I want to update this prompt, right? Oh, no, sorry. Yes, I've been playing with this too long. If I want to update this prompt to make it more specific, less specific, then this is where I would do it. And I would paste it into this spreadsheet and make a copy. And that's how I do it. I do that because I'm lazy, and it keeps my data and my output together with the prompt. So let's look at what we would do. So there's options. One is you can change the prompt, and adjust the AI agent to give more detailed answers. Okay. But then the other one is you can go and adjust the evaluation criteria, and that's more in the prompt. So, AI agent, well, how would I do that? I would use something more like 2.5 flash or 3 Pro 3 flash. So that's what we mean by changing those agents versus changing the prompt. But then when I change the prompt, you get the scoring criteria, be more concise, less concise, more important, and it's like, and so now this is how I will do it. But I see my output, and I see the prompt that was used to get it, and I know, and then I make another change, say to this one, and it's not doing as well. I can go right back and say, this is the output, this is the prompt. Okay? So here, I'll show you. I just go like this, Control A, Control C, and over here, and there it is. And there is all of the steps. For those of you who are curious, just shoot me a DM or a message, and I will let you know. Okay, so the next one is one of my favorites, and that is string similarity. Okay, so what these are, and I should. These are images of writing. Okay, and basically we are uploading these into an LLM. Right? We are looking at each one, and we're going to have it give us some outputs. Okay, and this is what it looks like with outputs. And we run a test. So now, so we got mostly 100%, 80%, 80%, but there's a 68%. And there's also 76%. As I'm building, and this is how I learned it, you can do it any way you want to, but it's use those outliers first. Get a handle on your outliers. Understand what they are doing, and let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here's my 68%, and here is my 70 or my 73%. What was the difference in the answers? Okay, so JYL versus JYC, JO Q when that should have been a 0.9. Okay, so that's why it got the 63%. Then, okay, then this one, or that was the 73%. This is a 68, where it added these 3 letters. And instead of a 0.9, it was a Q9. So that's where we're going. So what do? How do we fix that? Well, basically, we go back into our analyzing the image, and we give it more strict rules. And this is only handwritten code. You're only supposed to get what you do not include any explanations, notes, any other facts, do not verify, return only extracted code, nothing else. So, and the more we run it, so I get it, I run it to make sure that those don't happen again. Then, and again, here's my old prompts that I did in the past. Okay, so then I update it and I run it again. Then that's how we get let me show you the output though. But okay, thanks so much. So here's the evaluation, and our 20 cases, our average score is 0.94. And you're thinking, yeah, 94. If I was in school, I got a 94, I'd be pretty excited. But that means there's 6 out of 100 that didn't get, right. Meaning, you, as a startup founder, you can't have 6 unhappy customers out of 100. We need to have everybody happy. We need to get everybody's questions answered. And so we can look at different prompts and we can reset them. Execution time, what was fastest, what was slowest, okay? Why was first slow? Okay. But now you can start to understand what's happening and how things are working in the future and in the past. And so we don't have a lot of time to go through this because I still have one more that I wanted to show you some of the process. But once I've upgraded and updated my prompt, so say I update the prompt, then we run it again, and then we get a higher score, hopefully. But if it's a lower score, then I know that the first prompt was more useful, more effective. Okay, and that's what these are for. So just use one. But then, so say I wanted to change my, sorry, I'm moving around so much. I start to use a different model. Okay, and then let's say I use 2.5 flash or 3.0, 3.0 flash. I'm going to get a much higher score. And so then, well, that tells me then it's a model thing. But be careful, because by analyzing an image, it uses a lot of compute. Those times are really long in there, and because it takes so much time. And so you don't want that time as a variable, because that's where you want to do it. Now, one other thing that when I first started looking at these evaluations, I said to myself, I want output, so that's what this is for. I'll probably get rid of it. I want to see an output. I went back into my spreadsheet, right? So I wanted to score out here. And I worked and worked and worked on it. And then in here, in the evaluations, I realized that this is this is your score, and it's better to keep it in here than it is to put it in your spreadsheet. I have them here for demos purposes, but the reason we want to keep this store here is because it's all together and preparing for you guys. So it's all together, it's all here in one place. Because if I'm updating the spreadsheet, then I have another one, and I have another one, and I have another one. Well, that isn't as helpful. So you want to keep it together as much as you can, and all in one place. So, and it's all in the one, your evaluation. So we also have executions, which, there's my executions, all the times I ran it, and what I ran and how I ran it. So it's very helpful. But keeping it all together, staying organized, that is huge. And then, but the main thing though is when you're doing, you want to isolate variables, okay, and make sure that your data set is good when you start. Okay? Mine, I don't want to show you my customers and all that, so that's why I created these data sets for you. But make sure that your data is good. Run lots of tests and continue to run tests. Okay, so where in the past you were answering a lot of questions with your clients, now you're curating those questions and answers, you're putting them into your database, and then you're testing. Is this working? Is it getting better? Are the questions getting better? And it's a change in a role, but you spend a lot more time with your customers and taking care of your customers than answering those questions that you're like, didn't I tell you this? Didn't I give you this answer yesterday? Okay. And so we have one more that I want to show you, and that is a categorization of, and then we have evaluation, okay, and categorization. So basically, we have these. We have tickets. Okay, this is a subject, this is a body, and it could be emails too. So what category that we do? An expected category, okay, and expected priority, actual priority, actual category, actual priority. So we're asking it to evaluate these things, okay, and I haven't done it yet. So basically, we are going to run it. So then it ran again, and it's going through my database, right? It's going to go through all of these, and we got an error. This is what the error looks like. And so it's a category or priority, and it doesn't fit the right format. So now this is where my trick is to take a screenshot of this and put it into Claude Sonnet 4.5 in Poe and tell it, this is my output, this is my problem, and what do I do to fix it? And then it tells me, and then I go on. That's how I build these. I made this comment earlier about how they say this is no code required. If you're an engineer, you know what you're doing, so there's no code required. But when we have this situation, that we didn't have a subject, that was correct. So the model doesn't fit. So let's see, I'm going to run it here, right? So there it ran. Okay. And then execute step again. So now it's running. So then I'm going to execute the steps. So I'm running each step. Oh, I should tell you. So basically, I'm inside. I can click on a button and come over here, or I can click on it out here. So let's go right here. It runs a step, and here, and it's setting the metrics. Look at the metrics: category match, priority match. Okay. So we want to make sure that the variables are matched. And if I'm not getting the actual category, actual priority, so we're getting matches are false because I'm using different variables. Do you notice that? Category, priority. Now I'm looking at match and match. So that's where we're not getting the output. So, but I don't know that much about software engineering. I'm not afraid, but the main thing is to get in there and ask and try it out, because then I just copy and paste it into Poe, or I shouldn't say Poe, into Claude in Poe, and it will help me with the diagnostics and the steps so that I can figure out what is, where is the problem, what's going on. And the biggest cheat trick I can tell you guys is, even if you're not using Claude, you're using something else, just do a screen print and say, this is the output I'm getting, because it will look at the variables, right? And it will, say, here it's assigning numbers, false, false, true, true. And then, that's how it works. And that's when it's going to give you these variables, priority and actual. But I don't have time to run through it right now, or we'd be here for the next, and we have two people who are here just in time for us to be pretty much wrapping it up. Even though I've requested 1 hour for these workshops, headquarters always gives me an hour and a half. The reason we say an hour is because most people have had enough up to here in an hour. And so that's really where I want to leave it with you tonight. And let me get the info. So that in my laptop, yeah. So yeah, okay. So the main thing with that, I would like to stop sharing and look at Toronto. Wow, that means it's in the middle of the morning, early morning for Toronto. Well, there's a WhatsApp group. Yes, there is, and here I just send a link to the WhatsApp group. And sure, and Sarah, just hit me up. Basically, I'm teaching these lessons for Founders Institute, but I'm also doing some for teachers here in Hong Kong. So hit me up if you have a special one that you want to go through. Then I can lead you through it. And I'll post a message on the in the WhatsApp group when I'm going to have special sessions for any of you who are interested. I do teach some regular classes, but I'm not here to promote those regular classes, though we are finding that why not take a little break. I want to create for the alumni. I've been creating a retreat where we go to Bali, because Bali's cheap and it's close, and we all hang out in the beautiful tropical forest, and we work on AI, and we work on the how do I adopt, and not giving up my values, but bring AI into where it adds value into the things that I find valuable in my life. And so I'm creating one of those for the alumni here in Hong Kong and Vietnam, because I've been working with them so much. And many of you are listening, like Tristan, and Art, well, looking forward to seeing more of you. Anyway, with that, I don't want to belabor it any longer, and I'm losing my voice, if you can't tell. But the next session, 3 weeks from now, we're putting it all together. It's where we're going to create the ultimate assistant for you, where you pick up your phone, say, what's my schedule today? And it will tell you. And if you say, oh, I need to change that voice, I need to change the meeting today to tomorrow, then thanks, Tristan, then it will change it for you. So it's the ultimate assistant and helping you. And the reason you do this isn't so much for the assistant, but it's to learn that we will be able to use these agents in the future. So it's not about setting up an agent. It's not about setting up these evaluations. It's knowing how to do it. You may not be setting up evaluations in the future, but if you need to know how to fix them, right, then that is what you want to do. Okay. So, and that just asks about the recordings. I will, when I get off, I will put you notice there's 2 recordings. Well, for me, and one is a Fathom note taker. That's me. And also the recording for the Zoom for headquarters. We do both recordings for one reason, because one night both of them failed, right? And there's been times when Fathom has failed, there's been times when Zoom has failed, and we want to get these. But the great thing about it is the more we get, the more we can put all into a database, and now it can help you in the future and make sure that you all can quickly and easily find ways to make sure that your Plug Hub. Can't wait to hear more about that. So Plug Hub and the rest of you, thank you very much for coming. Keep in touch, because again, I don't have your info. Well, a couple of you do. Tristan and Art and Leo. But the main thing is, contact me. Reach out, send me a text. I should be get back to you in just a few minutes, unless it's like last couple days, and then I've still got a half dozen texts in my message, or 9 right now. So anyway, you take care. Goodbye. Good luck, everyone, and we will see you next time. Another helpful session. I'm glad you liked it, Leo. Thank you very much. And I have stopped recording there. I'm gonna turn it all off by now. See, if I hold my hand up like this, my hand will raise. Do you see that? If I go like this in front of the thing, it will raise, and give me a heart. Yeah, see, there we go. So turn off. Yeah, good. So take care, everyone.